weapons destroyed. I'll open a channel to our reluctant criminal friend once you're clear of the area.
Fuck me, I'm hit!
Done. Big off DedSec. But can't believe my eyes at how many guns you found.
As a big AAA open-world game, there's plenty going on in Watch Dogs Legion as it is. Add to that the game's play-as-anyone mechanic and the intricate systems it creates, and Watch Dogs Legion becomes a game with much more complexity than you'd expect. As you begin your fight to liberate London and help its people rise up in a resistance, going in with some prior knowledge will help make the early goings a little bit smoother for you. To that effect, in this feature, we'll be talking about some basic tips and tricks to keep in mind while playing Watch Dogs Legion. Keep scanning. This should be a thumb rule for you throughout the entire game. Every single character you see in Watch Dogs Legion's world can be recruited and played as, and you never know who you might run into in its open world. As such, it's a good idea to make sure that you're regularly scanning people around you. You might just find your next great DedSec operative in the process. Unlock the Deep Profiler. In Watch Dogs Legion's central loop of identifying and recruiting new DedSec members, the Deep Profiler is perhaps your most useful tool you'll have at your disposal. Depending on your actions and gameplay, you may end up influencing the way a character thinks of DedSec, which means you might often end up identifying potential recruits who are not exactly the friendliest towards your organization. That's where the Deep Profiler comes in, because not only does it show you the detailed daily schedules of characters, it also tells you about potential recruitment opportunities that might make that character more sympathetic to DedSec. So, A, unlock the Deep Profiler upgrade as soon as possible, and B, make sure you leverage it well, because it's an incredibly useful tool. Contacts. From where a person will be at a certain time of day, to their interests and hobbies, to any conflicts that they might be embroiled in, there's a lot to learn about every character from the Deep Profiler. One of the most crucial things it details, however, is every character's known contacts, which can be anything from a sibling to a parole officer to a business associate to a fierce competitor. Following up on these contacts is often a great way to convince a character to join your cause. For instance, help someone out of a spot or sabotage their competitor, and they'll suddenly like DedSec a lot more. Tech points. There may not be any single protagonist in Watch Dogs Legion, but there is a skill tree that applies to your entire roster. The currency you spend on that tree is tech points, which are essentially scattered all throughout the map. Always keep an eye out for these, from inside vents to under stairs to roofs of tall buildings and more. Tech points are hidden all over the place and not always the easiest to reach. Spiderbot. So what exactly should you spend your tech points on? We've already spoken about the Deep Profiler unlock, but there's other crucial weapons and hacks to unlock and upgrade as well. There's the incredibly versatile and constantly useful Spiderbot, which should definitely be one of your first unlocks, if not the very first. Additionally, you should also make sure that you unlock the Spiderbot's double jump and sprint abilities as quickly as possible, because that really helps with maneuverability later on. Shroud. Here's another incredibly useful hack that should be one of your first unlocks. Shroud, as its name suggests, makes enemies that are dead or knocked out on the ground invisible. Enemies in Watch Dogs Legion will often get alerted by corpses, so having a gadget that avoids risking detection once you've downed a foe will be a huge deal.
I can't see the suspect! I'm done! Oh, ah!
Cargo drones are OP. This is something that you'll probably discover pretty early on in the game by yourself. Cargo drones are ridiculously useful. You can jump on top of them and easily fly all across the map, which means these drones are great to scope out enemy bases from a bird's eye view, and even better if you manage to get your hands on a long-range weapon. Cargo boards also come in quite handy when looking for tech points, because quite often their caches are found on roofs, where most of the challenge is about finding the right way up. With a cargo drone, all of that is eliminated. If you have a construction worker in your team, which you will pretty soon into the story, you can also summon a cargo drone at any time, which makes construction workers great for scouting and recon, and getting tech points.
Mission accomplished.
Don't break out the tiny party hats just yet. We might have bought our boxers some time, but once Clan Kelly finds out what happened, they'll almost certainly want revenge. Suggest you warn him.
First operative. After the game's prologue is over, Watch Dogs Legion will ask you to pick the very first operative you want to recruit to DedSec. This will be your first playable character of the game outside of the prologue, the spark that will light the fires of DedSec's resistance. With all of that said, it's best not to stress too much about who your first operative is going to be. Given how quickly you rack up new recruits and how often you'll be swapping between them, it's unlikely that you'll get too attached to or even spend a great deal of time with your very first operative. Uniformed access recruits. Going forward into the game, it goes without saying that some characters are more useful than others, which means recruiting them should be kept on a priority. For instance, characters that get you uniformed access into otherwise restricted areas. From police officers to Albion contractors to Clan Kelly members to construction workers. There's various different kinds of uniformed characters who will let you easily walk right into different restricted locations. Recruit a cop and a doctor. This should be high on your list of priorities as well. It doesn't even matter what their attributes or traits are, just as long as they're a doctor and a cop, because both will provide incredibly useful buffs for your entire team. Having a person on the police department will mean a shorter cooldown before you can use them after an arrest. Similarly, having a doctor on your team allows your injured operatives to heal faster. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.